Once in royal David's city stood a lowly cattle shed, where a mother laid her baby in a manger for his bed. Mary was that mother mild, Jesus Christ, her little child.
All the things I am going to tell you happened nearly 2,000 years ago. It started on a cold, cold night. The stars hung in the sky like fairy lights. Up on the hills, a group of shepherds huddled in their blankets while they watched to see that their sheep did not stray. Down, far below them, the lights twinkled in a little town called Bethlehem. Then suddenly, one of them noticed a bright light coming towards them from high in the sky. He pointed to it and called the others. The light came nearer and nearer until the shepherds saw before them an angel, bright and glorious in shining robes, who told them he had been sent by God.
While shepherds watched their flocks by night, all seated on the ground, the angel of the Lord came down, and glory shone around.
Go, he said, down to Bethlehem and look for a stable, and there you will find a baby boy who is the Son of God. Half running, stumbling on the rocks, forgetting all about their sheep, the shepherds went down to the town and arrived at the stable, breathless and tired. There, among the cows and the horses, lay a tiny baby, wrapped in a shawl and watched over by his mother Mary and her husband Joseph.
Away in a manger, no crib for a bed, the little Lord Jesus laid down his sweet head. The stars in the bright sky looked down where he lay, the little Lord Jesus asleep on the hay.
A manger in a stable is a surprising place to find a baby, so I'd better tell you how he came to be there. In those days, Palestine, which is the name of the country where Jesus was born, was ruled by the Romans. The Romans liked to know where everybody was and how many of them there were. So every few years they made all the people go to the big towns to be counted.
Far away we come to you to tell of great tidings strange and true. From far away we come to you to tell of great tidings strange and true.
Mary and Joseph didn't live in a big town. They lived in a village called Nazareth. So to be counted, they had to go to Bethlehem. Mary rode on a donkey and Joseph walked beside her. They often had to stop to rest, and they took so long that when they did arrive in Bethlehem, there wasn't a single room left where they could sleep. There was only the stable.
Love came down at Christmas, love more lovely, love divine. Love was born at Christmas, star and angels gave the sign. Worship we our Godhead, love incarnate, love divine. Worship we our Jesus, but wherewith for sacred sign.
So it happened that was where baby Jesus was born, among the cows and the horses.
Hark the herald angels sing, glory to the newborn King.
But with angels watching over him and singing joyful songs because Jesus, who would teach people how to be good, had been born.
Holy nations rise, join the triumph of the skies.
was all very strange indeed. There was the stable and the cows and the horses. And there was Mary and Joseph and the baby Jesus, with the shepherds around them praying to God and worshipping the baby. And when they had finished praying, they went back to their sheep, climbing to the hills and singing at the tops of their voices.
Unto us a boy is born, King of all creation. Came he to our world forlorn, the Lord of every nation. To make a earth of the heat, let the organ thunder, while the choir with peals of glee doth rend the air, sound the
That, of course, could be the end of the story, but there were other exciting things going on that night. Away in the middle of a desert, a little procession was hurrying along. In the front there were 3 men on camels. Behind them came their servants on horses, and behind the servants came more horses loaded with luggage. And they were all on their way to see a great new king. The 3 men on camels were kings themselves.
We 3 kings of Orient are, bearing gifts we traverse afar. Field and fountain, moor and mountain, following yonder star. Oh, star of one.
Weeks before, they had seen a beautiful bright star, and it seemed to beckon them to follow it. So they had packed up and gone off, quite certain that the star would lead them to a king who was even greater than themselves. When they got to Jerusalem, they decided to ask someone where the great new king could be found. And being kings, they decided to ask another king, and his name was Herod. Now Herod had no idea where or who the new king could be, and he didn't like the idea of having another king in his kingdom. So he called his priests together and consulted with them. The priests looked up their old books and discovered that it had been foretold that a king would be born in Bethlehem.
O little town of Bethlehem, how still we see thee lie. Above the deep and dreamless sleep, the silent stars go by. Yet in thy dark streets shineth the everlasting light. The hopes and fears of all the years are met in thee tonight.
Now Herod was a very wicked king. He didn't want to go to Bethlehem. So he told the 3 kings where to go and asked them to call on their way back and tell him what they had found. So off the 3 kings went. They must have had a surprise when they reached Bethlehem, for the star stopped not over a palace, not even over a great house, but over a stable.
The day of glory, the day that ends our war, the day that tells of triumph.
Nevertheless, the kings got off their camels, took in their hands the precious gifts they had brought, and went inside. Somehow they knew at once that baby Jesus was the great king they were looking for. At his feet they laid their gifts, gold and 2 kinds of scent, one called frankincense and the other myrrh. And then the kings, like the shepherds, knelt down and worshipped baby Jesus.
Little child Jesus, holy and blessed, born in the dim long ago, laid in a manger at night to rest, lulled by the candles deep low. Little child Jesus, helpless and weak, held in thy mother's soft arm. Soft in thy slumber, now she may sleep, pressed in the stable
Then they too went away, looking back as they did so on the little town. The kings, by the way, never did tell Herod about Jesus. In a dream, God appeared to them and warned them not to go back to Herod. This too could be the end of the story, but it is really only the beginning. For the day Jesus was born in the stable in Bethlehem was the first Christmas Day.
Oh, come, all ye faithful, joyful and triumphant. Oh, come.
When he grew up, he was called Jesus Christ, and the day was named after him.
Come and behold him, for the King.
And each Christmas Day, we, like the shepherds, sing carols and rejoice that Jesus Christ was born.
Oh, come, let us adore